So good afternoon. My name is Igor Blaževič, and I'm from Senior Advisor at the Prague Civil Society Center. And I have a real pleasure to have with me today Valeriu Pașa, who is a policy expert, senior analyst, founder and chair of the WatchDog.MD, Watchdog Moldova. And this is a think tank which builds public resilience to disinformation and manipulative narratives. They do a lot of analysis of the Moldova's security situation and draws attention on the Russian interference, not only in Moldova, but also what are the impacts and lessons learned for the other countries. So Valeriu, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Igor, and thanks for having me.
So we will talk today and focus today on the lessons learned from the Moldovan presidential elections in 2024 and try to learn some lessons what happened there. So can we start, Valeriu, with just explain us a little bit the context of that specific elections in Moldova, who is running against whom, what is at stake, what are the profiles of the key candidates, so for the people who don't follow Moldova closely, have a context.
Yeah, so first of all, what's important to know is that we had not only presidential elections, but also a constitutional referendum with one single topic, introduction of the European integration into the constitution of the country, something which in a form or another was done by almost all countries which joined the EU in the recent 50 years. That was important because that shaped the discussions very much, including around the elections. Regarding presidential candidates, of course, most important was the incumbent president at that time, Sandu, who won back in 2020 in an uneven competition with the pro-Russian candidates and oligarchic candidates. So she was elected then for the first time. Against her, we had a dozen of candidates, like I think 11 other candidates, of which 10 were obviously Russian proxies, or at least people who, in a way or another, played Russian game. That was the sophisticated competition, because it allowed Russia to imitate and to shape very much the public space, the debate. When you have 10 candidates who pretend to represent very different political forces, it doesn't matter how popular they are. But it imitates a specific, trend of public opinion, and it influences the perceptions of the people. Having so many political forces under its control, Russia played till very end a duplicitary game, so it wasn't very clear who exactly is the key runner for them. In the end, what we learned was that the most obvious is the true option, that the candidate supported by the most important pro-Russian party at that time, Socialist Party, same person who was the former general prosecutor of the country, was the one who received most of this Russian support, and got into the second round of elections. Mr. Alexandru Stoianoglu, as I mentioned, was the former general prosecutor of the country. Additionally, we had more centrist candidates, such as the former mayor of second biggest city of the country, Renato Usatăi, and we had multiple this proxy candidates whose role was not to accumulate votes, but just to spread manipulation in public sphere, accusations, and so on, to pave the road for the key candidate in a way or another. What was interesting is that a key part of Russia's strategy was to take a part of the pro-European votes for a pro-Russian candidate. That's why, for example, Mr. Stoyanoglu publicly told always that he's a supporter of European integration. It's super funny when you see him being backed, supported by Russia, by the fugitive oligarchs such as Ilan Shor, who is under international sanctions and works for Russia's, and he supported Stoyanoglu. But that is, I would say, the first lesson learned is that it is not that linear anymore. Russians can pretend to be someone else, or to try to penetrate some parts of the political field, which obviously are not pro-Russian. It's a very interesting thing, I believe.
And you have described, let's say, this meddling as in 2024 as unprecedented. And the kind of, and Russia is meddling in a Moldovan politics basically since the very, very long time, let's say since at least in 2001. So what is unprecedented now? Let's say, why is something more or something more intensively? What is significantly different than before?
Unprecedented is the intensity and the amount of resources which were invested by Russia in this election interference. For example, the estimation of 2021 parliamentary elections, 3 years before this presidential election, was that Russia spent about 13 million euro to support the pro-Russian parties then. Last year, they spent about 150 million euro. So this is just to give a context. And this amount is huge. We're talking about 1.2% of the nominal GDP of the country. Just imagine this figure. And well, that is unprecedented. These huge resources allowed them to buy a lot of influence. I'm talking here about multiple candidates and political parties. It's a dozen of different political parties. I mentioned about the number of candidates whom they supported. I'm talking about different media resources, from classical, TV, websites and stuff like this, and ending with hundreds of corrupted online influencers, hundreds of anonymous Telegram channels who worked in a concentrated way to spread specific manipulations, online ads, hundreds of thousands of fake accounts who were just commenting and spreading different manipulative and fake stories. I'm talking about call centers back in Russia. I'm talking about a very sophisticated network of vote buying, of corruption of the voters through different methods, of organization of fake protests, disruption actions, even attempts of terroristic acts against the Central Electoral Commission, this harassment of the state institutions with different fake letters, with fake bomb alerts and many other things. Cyber attacks.
Valeriu, all these things are probably took some time to prepare them, to put all the pieces together. And then all of them are happening in like a blitzkrieg in a month time, in a 2 months, during the election campaign. Or it's a more kind of a systematic, long time influence peddling.
So it's constant.
Yeah. Okay.
And you just see how gradually the intensity grows ahead of election. So it is constant effort. It never disappeared. It's of high intensity permanently, and ahead of election, you just see how that intensifies a lot. For example, now, what we see from the beginning of this year, and by now, is clear of more intensity than it was last year at that time, yeah? Because now we have other elections, parliamentary elections, more important than presidential elections and the referendum, which will happen at the end of September. And by now, we see a much, much more intense war. So they hired more people, they have more resources, they learned the lessons, they became much more sophisticated in spreading their psychological war. And we can compare to what happened last year. They are involving the church, and they did it last year. Now they do it even with a higher intensity. They have even more political parties. For example, they intensified their penetration of the pro-European political side. So there are more and more politicians who pretend to be pro-European, but we see how they participate in these campaigns to distort public opinion. We just see how political leaders or opinion makers who pretend to be pro-European, they can, condemn the war in against Ukraine and so on. But we just see how they repeat exactly the same talking points as parties connected to these fugitive oligarchs, obviously pro-Russian opinion makers, all these, and even the Russian MFA. So it is for us when we are monitoring this space, it's more and more obvious that this is part of the tactics. Russia is also doing the political part of the work, so they force pro-Russian politicians to unite their forces in the electoral blocks. Yes, why? To make sure that not one of their vote will, waste. On other hand, they try to multiply this political offer for pro-Europeans to disperse the votes. So it is huge. Additionally, they provoke different forms of crisis, as happened at the beginning of this year in Transnistrian breakaway region. So they provoked an economic, energy, and humanitarian crisis in that region, which is under Russian occupation. But it was the government of Moldova, with support of EU, who had to find solutions to this humanitarian crisis to avoid its spread. So this is another form of this harassment and waste of resources. Instead of preparing for elections and fighting Russian interference in elections, key state institutions were busy with something else. This is also part of their tactics in their strategy. So it's quite intense. This is why we called it unprecedented, because we can compare now a lot of talks about Russian interference in elections in Romania. We follow that quite closely. There is a unity of not just cultural and ethnic unity. We are sharing more than 1 million citizens. So it's important for us what happened there. And I can say that, what happened, what are the evidences of Russian interference in Romania is like what was happening in Moldova in less than a week ahead of elections last year. So also we need to understand that the level of resilience of Moldova is not that bad, having in mind the threat. I can say we couldn't do better. Yes, state institutions could do better, partners could be more efficient. We in civil society could do better and be more focused and more efficient, and media and everyone could do the work better. There is no limit for improvement. But if we compare what happened in other parts and the amount of this pressure, I think the fact that referendum was positive, President Sandu was re-elected, that was a victory of the pro-European, pro-democratic forces.
It's a big achievement.
It's a big achievement. But again, we are not certain that it could be repeated this year at the parliamentary elections.
Let me now share your power presentation, which you have presented at the Unlock conference which we organize here in Prague. And if you can just a little bit explain, let's say, what you have presented here in a presentation. It is about Russian meddling in Moldova from 2001 to 2024. What are the key findings which you want to highlight here?
Well, it's simple. There's are different methods or tactics used by Russians to interfere in elections in Moldova over time, and the intensity. Again, some of these cells are empty. It is because I didn't have the evidence. Maybe something was going. But not that obvious, or just I don't have evidence because I use generally the public, publicly available information. It's not something secret. And we see a gradual intensification. First of all, what we see is that Russia was always in a way or another involved into our elections. I think it also happened in the 90s, but there is too less evidence, and I was a little bit too young to to talk about that time. Yes, and there are not so many, witness of those events who are ready to talk. And we see this intensification, especially starting from 2014, which is the moment of Russian aggression in Ukraine and intensification of the hybrid war against democracies, EU, US, and so on. And we see how it intensifies. So I actually first produced this table back in 2019, ahead of the parliamentary elections we had in February of 2019, just to try to understand this phenomena better, and followed. For what happened last year, and you see here different colors, which means like if it is yellow, then it is of low intensity. If it's red, it's of high intensity. For what happened last year, I had to introduce an intense red color. Also there is a form of I tried to make kind of a score for every of this method. It's relative. It's relative. The fact that we have 35 and in 24 and we had 22 in 2021, it doesn't reflect the actual increase in intensity of all this. Again, it's not a sophisticated methodology, probably. I should think once of developing it more intensively, but it offers a general picture. And we have here all possible issues. It's disinformation, it is political support, this transfer of political popularity from Russian state authorities, politicians to Moldovan, financial support, I mean, like coverage of elections in Russian media, and especially it mattered before 2019 because Russian media used to be very, very popular and present in Moldovan TV space, especially we're talking about TV, but also radio, printed press, involvement of organized crime. I mean, the Moldovan organized mobs, which are very connected to Russian mafias, and act under authority of Russian FSB. We're talking about the involvement of the church, this Russian patriarchate, and it is just intensifying. I try to put in light also the key key institutions in Russia responsible for this meddling, especially this well-known Chernov department in the Russian presidential administration, who was responsible for constant interference in Moldovan politics and in politics of the other Eastern European, Central Asian, Caucasian countries. And many other things, exploration of the Transnistria, and Russian control and influence there. So everything of that. So this is more or less the picture, but I repeat, it doesn't reflect the actual growth, but schematically at least we can make conclusion of that, and this is also, I think, a mapping which can be useful for other countries which face same things, as for example the exploration of the Moldovan diaspora in Russia. Yes, and like we can compare it, for example, for what's coming in Armenia. I'm sure that after Moldova, next year elections in Armenia will become a key target for Russians.
It's already obvious, let's say, now when you follow the Armenian dynamics there, all these things what you have mentioned here in Moldova are basically already in action in Armenia in the preparation for the elections there. Can we just now a little bit for a moment just go through these kind of the key things which are red, let's say, high intensity red. If you can just explain us a little bit more concretely, let's say, how really that happened. And we can start, for example, with the domestic kleptocratic elites and with the organized crime. In which way they have been recruited? What has been really specifically their role in a bigger game?
So in 2019, the local kleptocrats, most prominent of whom is Vladimir Plahotniuc, who is an international criminal, lost the power in the parliament and fled the country, together with his junior partner, Ilan Shor, who is the main executor of the renowned $1 billion theft from Moldovan banks. And at that point, their interests and the interests of Russians merged gradually. So their positions get closer and closer. And by 2023, Ilan Shor became a kind of a main implementer, not just enabler, but like implementer of Russian interference. So he received huge resources, which are being paid partially through Roman Abramovich, partially through the bank of the Russian Ministry of Defense Bank. It's called Promsvязьbank. It is the bank of the Ministry of Defense. So this is the bank through which Russia pays for its war. So just think like in the matter of resources, of financing, of interference in Moldova, it is part of Russian military budget. Yeah, it is very important for understanding of things. So for them, it is part of the war map, if you want, strategic map. Yeah, it is crucial to understand. So they practically hired Ilan Shor, offered him resources and opportunities. For example, about 1.5 years ago, he moved to Russia. Before that, by the way, he was prohibited in Russia. He got the prohibition, I think, in 2015. And just imagine what kind of person this is. In argumentation of his prohibition in Russia, it was that he is very corrupt and he corrupts everyone. So imagine someone was prohibited in Russia for corruption. So you can imagine what kind of person you should be that you are prohibited in this super corrupt country. So this is this kind of person. A very interesting person for research, for example. Another guy is this Plahotniuc. Another guy is Vyacheslav Platon, who is one of the most prominent money launderers in the history of the world. He was hiding in England, in UK, recently was arrested under request of Moldovan authorities. Ilan Shor is convicted for this banking theft. Plahotniuc is under international investigation, and recent evidence tell that Plahotniuc is also in Russia. So these oligarchs and kleptocrats have the interest to get rid of the Moldovan government, to get the power back and to avoid the legal consequences of their crimes. Russia has the same interest to get rid of the pro-European government of Moldova. So that is where they start merging their interest naturally. Organized crime. Organized crime is something they were exploring for a while. For example, there is one key person called Grigori Karamalak, who is originally from Moldova. So he was in the 90s one of the most prominent heads of these mobs. And to avoid arrest in Moldova, he escaped to Russia. At one point, he was arrested on the request of Moldovan authorities back in 2003 or 2004, and was almost ready to be extradited back home, when suddenly he was released, and he involved in the elections in 2005 against the then Moldovan President Voronin, who was in conflict with Russia at that point. And even he received the Russian citizenship. From that point, he became an asset for Russians, and he was close to Solntsevskaya Gruppirovka, which is one of the most famous mafias around the world. So yeah, kind of.
And these organized crime groups, they are used then to create the disturbances in Moldova, there to create the
even
tension,
not that
insecurity,
simple.
or
So they have connections
different
and
roles.
influences, his money and so on. And he was involved in politics, practically overtly supporting the pro-Russian forces with money, with resources, recruiting of people. Yeah, so this is one of the matters. Obviously, they should have a role in smuggling cash into the country and other stuff like this, penetration of the state institutions with corruption. Again, I cannot say that their role was very important comparative to other matters, but it is present. It is constantly present.
And what about this kind of the phenomenon of the bribing? Let's say in a certain way, there has been some new element in a way how the bribing has been done in terms of the scales and the methodology and techniques. So if you can just describe us a little bit how the bribing happened.
So what they did, they built a regional network, which is a mixture of classical party structure, multi-level marketing, and criminal psychology, which used to be a kind of a perfect melange, a perfect synergy. So they structured them as normal party hierarchy. They had incentives such as, for example, if you recruit 10 people, then you get bonuses. Yeah, it's in multi-level marketing. And this criminal psychology, such as, look, it's like you promised to me, we are together into that. So we need to fight till the end. Otherwise, if our guys will not take the power, then we all will have to suffer. Yeah, so they practically make the people complicits. One example, they were recruiting people and organizing travels to Russia to different events and so on, and giving them cash to come back home to smuggle cash into the country. And these people were detained at the airport. They couldn't prove the origin of the money, and they got under criminal investigations. So there were more than 10,000 of these people. And they always were sending another people. Why they did it? Because these people became complicits. Yeah. So they got additional motivation. There was a very good investigation by our Moldovan media called Ziarul de Gardă. It's like Moldovan Guardian. So they infiltrated one of the young journalists, a young woman, infiltrated in this network. So she came to one of the events where people are paid to organize meetings, to participate at the meetings. And she thought, look, I understood that there is possibility to get some money. I'm a student. I need a part-time job, maybe. And she infiltrated in one of this. It's a small locality, part of the capital municipality. So she became part of that team, and she filmed everything with covered camera. It's very interesting to see the way those people were talking. First of all, whom they recruited on different levels, especially at the local level. Usually there were those kind of people who had some small legal issues before.
Problem with the crowd.
Yeah, some small problems with the law because of different small crimes, so this type of people. In the villages also, they were recruiting those people who don't like to work, who like to have some easy gains with small risks, maybe not very legally, so they are not ready to get into serious crime. just, this kind of persons who is like not working anywhere, but somehow has some money, but still not enough to really live good. So they recruited a lot of this kind of people. So there is a serious psychological work behind these efforts. And even when she did conspire and told to her curator that, look, I'm actually a journalist. So the response was, yeah, but you promised to me, how could you did it? So they put this psychological pressure. And the lowest level, they were recruiting the poorest people, alone, old people.
With the incentive of the money. With the incentive of the money,
isn't it? Not only the money, of course, most important, but also opportunity for networking.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is also important. So it is a serious social psychology effort behind all this thing. So in the end, what they did, so they had curators, every district one. They split the regions in 3-4 sub-regions, which had its own curator. Then every village has one kind of key person, and even the villages were split in regions. So it was a pyramid form, very well established. So they installed apps of the Russian bank, and they were transferring the money to these people. The money was like in this Russian banking system, which you cannot withdraw at any ATM. So they were withdrawing the money in Transnistrian region or abroad. So there was a sophisticated scheme how to cash out this money. So all this, multi-layer were paid monthly. They were getting bonuses, and at the lowest level, people also were receiving this SMS with confirmation and with the money. So Moldovan police documented 139,000 people who installed these banking apps. Sometimes the people even didn't know that someone used their personal data. It was super funny. In those investigations, you can find how this journalist and another colleague of her, they created fake ID cards, fake in Photoshop, and submitted in Telegram bot. And based on those fake ID, this Russian bank opened them an account and transferred real money. So it's crazy how that can work.
And that kind of system which was happening, kind of as you mentioned, hierarchy, territorially covering the whole country or as much of the country, and that is probably combined with relatively sophisticated targeting through the social media, isn't it? So basically you have
was one part. You had grassroots campaigning, you had disruptive actions as some, graffitis, another thing, illegal campaigning actually in the referendum campaign especially. So unregistered entities were campaigning vote no at the referendum. Online, it was huge. So we documented, legitimate ads on Facebook solely with hundreds of thousands of euro, Google ads, YouTube ads. These groups, TikTok was the most intensely explored space, and there was a lot of hate. Hundreds of these so-called influencers who were paid just to spread fakes, manipulation, hate speech, both against European integration and the president or Sanduk, incumbent president. They used all these candidates, proxy candidates, to spread the same narrative. So this part of the information manipulation was super sophisticated, so no one can account everything. We just, saw different spikes. It was huge. Thousands of people worked behind it. They created additionally a call center in Moscow. They recruited people, like at the beginning they were recruiting Moldovans, then they started recruiting Russians, hundreds, rumors say about 800 people constantly working. So they were calling back home. So all this network collected personal data of people, then they have both different databases. They were calling people. So not only online manipulation, but direct call center. So, well, that one was enormous.
And if we can just for a moment also touch on the question of the Orthodox Church. and in which Orthodox Church was kind of the part of the whole puzzle of the whole strategy, whether it was just kind of the advising parishes how to vote, or they also are doing something else or something more.
So most intensively it happened in northern part of Moldova and also the Gagauzian autonomy. But especially northern part of Moldova, there is a bishop of northern Moldova who is a close friend of Russian Patriarch, who practically is not subordinated to the Metropolitan of Moldova. So he was overtly campaigning at the referendum in the elections, and he gave order to all the priests, about 600 people under his authority, to travel to Russia. So these people were paid there at least $1,000 each to campaign during the liturgies. Some of them were even used as smugglers of cash into the country. So something which we never saw. And now it continues. Like now they are not traveling that much to Russia, but they travel to Israel, where it happened. They travel to Serbia, where it happened. So it's not stopping. It's not stopping. And this is a highest intensity. We had cases, of course, it's you cannot avoid that. Many of the priests have these very pro-Russian views. They are very conservative. Of course, they are easy targets for being involved in this anti-European propaganda. But what happened last year is not comparable at all.
Yeah. And how, let's say, so, what you described is overwhelming. How the democratic states of Moldova was defending itself, what the state has, democratic states have done, what the civil society has done, what the other players, who played the key role, let me put it like that, who played the key role, an important role in kind of the defending integrity of the elections and democratic system.
Well, in a normal situation, that should be the law enforcement. The prosecutors, police, special services, and judges. And special services did their work, not perfectly, but did. Police did, maybe with a little delay, but still did it. Again, we are not a well-established democracy and rule of law country to expect that they will be perfect. But the prosecutors and the judges practically sabotaged this work. So police was collecting evidence, and prosecutors were denying arrests or accepting it too late, or even after arresting someone, it is, this endless investigation and so on. Even if something goes to the court will endlessly postpone that. So practically we have a Trojan horse. Yeah, it is the Moldovan justice system, who either plays overtly on the side of the adversary, or at least denies any responsibility. This is the saddest part, and this is our key vulnerability, of course, from the security perspective. So when you cannot legally punish that, you have to invent something else. At least what our authorities did well, special services, government, they worked on exposure relatively well. But the key role in defending that was the role of the citizens who understood that, as civil society and independent media who exposed that and mobilized people, explained to enough people that this is the actual threat and the danger. If that wouldn't happen, we couldn't succeed. It's not a normal situation. Everyone has to play its role. But when you have justice system as practically an ally for the adversary, it's very hard. It is really super hard to act. Just one example. Like it recently happened in Estonia. At the beginning of this year, 2 Moldovan citizens recruited by Russian special services committed some arsons and left Estonia. They were arrested in Italy in March. In the meantime, they were extradited. Estonian investigators and prosecutors ended the investigation, sent it to the court, and the people were already convicted a few weeks ago. So it took less than 6 months. In case of Moldova, where very serious evidences are, A court can just postpone endlessly, like next hearing is after 2 months. Yeah. So they don't have this sense of urgency of the national security issues. And Estonia is one of the most well-established democracies over the world, with free institutions, but responsible institutions. What we have in Moldova, we have independent justice, which is corrupt. That's all. So it is really, really, really a big problem. If our justice would work at a decent level, Russians could never be so free in what they do, because there wouldn't be impunity. So if someone took dirty money and nothing happened, it's like an incentive to repeat it. So for people involved, and 99.9% of them are doing it not because they really love Russia, but because it is an easy win, easy gain. Yeah, the pro-Russian politicians from Moldova also prefer to travel in Europe, spend their vacations there. Many of them have European citizenships. Their kids are all around Europe. Yeah, so this is material interest, financial interest, and until it's not punished, they will continue doing it.
And if you now go, imagine three different kind of scenarios, and this is really just now lessons for the future. Let's say we imagine and start with well-functioning democratic states, European Union member, and elections are coming a year from now on, and basically there is clear understanding that elections will be also under the hybrid Russian attack. What will be your advice for the state, for the public and independent media, for the civil society, what to do? Who should do what to try to preserve the integrity of the free, fair elections?
Exposure, yes. Any evidence of this interference should be exposed with all evidence. It's very important. Yeah. Second, follow the money. Yes. If that will be easy and costless for a TikToker to take Russian money through intermediaries, if these intermediaries will take dirty Russian money and nothing will happen, it will just amplify. Yeah. There are, lobbyist groups taking money from the sanctioned oligarchs working in Brussels, organizing them, I don't know, publications in press, events, travels, and so on. And they don't face any consequences. So this is those backdoor. And third is consolidating cohesion and resilience through strategic communication. It is very important to follow the topics. It is not about spreading fakes. Yeah, it is about manipulation of people beliefs and behaviors. So there is need for institutions responsible for that at the national and pan-European level, because the situation is variable from one country to another. Even neighboring countries having many in common can be very different in their level of resilience to Russian propaganda. There are opinion polls made by different institutes, like there is European Council for Foreign Relations. It is Globsec from Slovakia, doing these comparative opinion polls around Europe, and we see huge differences. So Denmark is one situation, or Nordic countries in general. Eastern flank is very different, and Czech Republic is one, and Slovakia is very different, and Romania is different, and Bulgaria is different, and you have Western Europe, Southwestern Europe. You have the situation in Spain, which is not bright, where Russian narratives are accepted. You have neighborhood Portugal, which is much, much better. You have Italy, which is on some points worse than Eastern Europe, for example. Yes. So something happens, and that is in the media. So work with the media and explain, because the media is also easy to penetrate in some cases. In different countries, Russian money come and people just repeat blah blah. We need to be conscious about the threat of this extreme right, so-called sovereignist movement, which is just acts as a Russian proxy, yeah, and legitimize some of the Russian interests. So there is a need for institutional response to all that. Of course, it's not easy because we cannot use prohibitive measures. The work with platforms, responsibility, TikTok is absolutely impossible to manage. They just don't do what they pretend to be doing. And Meta is much better, by the way. And Google, through its YouTube, made some statements that they, prohibited Russian state channels, but just another channels promoting the same things. Yeah, it should be impossible that Google, through YouTube, generates bubbles of Russian propaganda. Similarly with others. So they need to take it into account that female operations are exploring their algorithms. So it should be change something. Like when I recently changed some setups at my Facebook profile, and I put, okay, so I want to see more political information. Facebook immediately started to bombard me with the posts of Russian embassies from around the world. The pages I'm not following. Yes. So it is an issue.
And that kind of this systematic defense, that means really that needs in a certain way also cooperation of the state or the civil society, think tanks, research, investigating teams, and really kind of work as as almost kind of comprehensive team.
And there is still expertise from the Cold War era time. In Russia, they developed and improved this offensive operations in information war. In the West, it became more, the interest of the researchers of the history of the Cold War, and it didn't develop, the defensive capabilities in the information war. There are capabilities, some in military, some in civil society, and so on. So there is a need for very balance, because still we need to protect our democracy and freedoms. So we cannot come with prohibitive measures, but we need to be smart. There is expertise and capacity and capabilities. The democratic world has much more creative and smart people than Russia has. Yes. So it is just about allocation of resources to that. Because just, you can build, doesn't matter how many tanks and other defense instruments, if Russia will simply buy your elections and bring their proxies into the power, then all this investment will be useless. So resources also need to be allocated. This is part, even not of security, this is part of defense.
And if we now kind of just think about countries like Moldova, elections are coming there, elections are coming in Armenia. So we have democratic parties in a government. We have a pro-European parties in a government. In both cases, they will come under heavy attack, what you have described. So how these governments and civil society and the media in this country, what they should do? Let's say, obviously, traditional debunking, disinformation, that doesn't work. Let's say, so what does work?
So first of all, debunking obviously doesn't work. It could be, from time to time used for the reasons of media literacy and so on. And it should be interesting. No one reads 20 pages. That's normal. But exposure, building of this democratic resilience through promotion of some institutions which are independent, elections and so on. Strengthening of independence of key institutions in elections. Yeah, it is like to make them as credible as possible and to improve their communication. Another important element should be, and here, by the way, Moldova and Armenia share more or less similar challenge. There should not be pro-European, pro-democracy party only in government. We need strong, diverse political offer. Yes, because Russians explore exactly that. It happened in Georgia to a certain degree. Yes, so there is need for a diverse offer and multi-party democratic environment, not just government. Because what they tell that this is dictatorship when you have one single party. So that's very bad.
Yeah.
And the role of civil society, democratic partners, is to stimulate diversity. This is part of resilience, because if they identify democracy with one single party, any party in government erodes.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is another lesson to be learned. It is very, very important. If you will not build genuine pro-democratic opposition forces, then Russians will come and say that this is our offer. We'll pretend to do it, as they do it now in Moldova. Yeah. Because imagine, like, when Russian proxies and Russian even like MFA pretends to be the defender of freedom of speech, of democracy, of diversity. It is cynical. It is hypocritical. But this is how they manipulate people.
Yeah. Valeriu, thank you very much. I really appreciate your work a lot, and also I'm really grateful for you for sharing some of your insights here. Let's say I will use that to share it with the colleagues in countries which are coming under the similar threats and attacks. So thank you very much. Continue your good work, and I hope we will continue to cooperate.
Thank you, and thanks for your work too.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.